Hi, everyone. It's Crystal here from Crystal Clear ESL. We are joined by the wonderful Nicola Prentice, the chilled investor, for a little Q&A based on her wonderful webinar all about becoming pension savvy as an ELT, an English language teacher. So here's a little bit about Nicola. She's a former EFL teacher and materials writer who used to have financial troubles, which I feel we can all relate to, but she taught herself everything she knows. She sorted out her pensions and other accounts and now grows her money and offers online courses to help other people in our industry do the same. Her goal is to demystify investing and give ELT teachers the tools, knowledge, and mindset to take charge of their finances without the help and expense of a financial advisor. If that sounds good to you, you are in the right place. Welcome, Nicola.
Hi, thank you for having me, as my mum always taught me to say at children's parties.
Thank you for coming. We're thrilled. I have to say, I decided to ask you on here because I did your webinar in another setting, and it was like a series of light bulb moments where I was just floored at what you had to say. So why don't we start off with just a real quick summary in case some of our viewers watched your webinar some time ago of the points that you covered in that webinar.
Okay, so obviously it's all about like future financial security and the idea that that is something that you take care of by the things that you do now. And in this industry, we are not given any guidance at all, which is one thing, because, you know, lots of industries, it's not like they sit their employees down and give them lectures about personal finance. But in this particular industry, you're left out on a limb because you're generally moving countries. You're often, it's this unspoken thing, really, that after you've done your TEFL training, you go and work for a language school, that you're probably going to be teaching private students, and you're probably going to be doing that cash in hand under the table. That gets you into a certain type of mindset, a scrappy type of mindset where, you know, you get money from this place, this place, and this place, and you kind of feel like you're winning because you're not paying tax on it and stuff. And that is something that isn't happening in other industries. In other industries, they're getting an employment contract, and okay, it might not be great pay at the beginning, and the pay will hopefully get better, which is not the case in TEFL, usually speaking. The salary stays the same, but they will have perks because they'll have a workplace pension, and that will take care of them, and they're officially in the state system, because that's just what happens in other industries, in normal jobs. And here you can end up, in this industry, you can end up between all of those systems, because you very unlikely do you have a workplace pension. And then what happens to people is, because they haven't had workplace pensions, again, they see that as winning. It's like, yeah, I haven't had to pay into that stupid thing where the money's going to come when I'm old, who cares? And then, you know, you might go, this happens a lot where people, for example, when you go to the UK in the summer, as a lot of people do for a summer school job, they tick the box that says opt me out of the workplace pension. And again, it feels like a win, and it's not. Yeah. So it's, you know, opting out of the workplace pension does mean, yes, your salary isn't docked by whatever percentage, which is usually 5%. But yes, what that also means is that your employer is not paying into, like, that was a little pay rise that your employer was going to have to give you. And yeah, you wouldn't get that pay rise until later when the pension matures, but still, you basically just turned down a 3% salary increase, and a 3% salary increase that was going to be put somewhere where it was going to grow and it was going to be worth more than that. And it's like, when all of these things happen together, they are catastrophic for people's finances, and no one is catching us at some point and saying, oh, here you are at this conference, no names mentioned. Here you are at this international conference where we help you become a better teacher. By the way, did you know that there's all of these ways that you could have a bit more money and a bit more security? And no one catches us. There's no professional training on this. There's not usually any kind of mention of it on any jobs that you go to. And so you're left in this situation where you think that you're doing fine. You might recognize that you're not earning enough money, but you kind of got used to it because you're having a lovely lifestyle wherever it is you live. And it just means that
and it
we're
feels
not.
like a trade-off maybe for the perks of
Yes.
where you've chosen to
Yeah.
live.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I'm choosing life, you feel like, and you can live abroad if that's what you do, or you can end up going back home, and you can still have these things in place. And the things that you want to be having in place is, are you contributing into the state pension system, or are you somehow kind of falling between the cracks? Can you be paying into a state system in the country where you're from? Because sometimes you can. In the UK, you can carry on contributing, even if you're not from the UK, just because you've worked there for 3 years in total. You don't even have to have been born there to have that right to be in the state pension system in the UK. No one tells us that. And so it's a state system. Like, can you find some state systems that will look after you? And you probably can. But yes, you will have to be officially in the system, not in the black market. And then the next thing is, like, what private things can you be setting up that will take care of you? And often the reason for having some of those private things is actually that you are reducing your tax bill. So it's not just like, oh, I'm building this thing for the future. It's, I'm reducing my tax bill now. Like, who doesn't want that? So
Right.
if you're not shown that these things are options, you don't know. And there's usually, not always, Spain doesn't have it, for example, but there's usually ways of growing money in certain types of accounts where it's tax-free. Lots of countries have systems like that. And if you don't know that you should be looking at that, then you don't look at it. And then maybe that means that you don't save money, because you're just like, what's the point? And if you don't develop a saving habit, then that's, a disservice you're doing to yourself. And I think when you start asking yourself all of these questions, then it goes hand in hand with going, actually, can I earn more? Actually, could I be doing better for myself now than this? Because I have an investing course for beginners, and people find that once they start looking into this stuff and they start sorting it out, it changes the chip a little bit for themselves, where they're going, hang on a minute, I could be earning more. And then they invest in themselves. And this is the kind of, stuff that you help people with. But like, it's like,
Less
how can I,
complacency.
how can I get a better deal for myself right now? Because, let's be honest, there's a lot of really crappy deals pay wise in TEFL, because by lack of all of this knowledge, we've accepted, hey, my lifestyle's great.
Yeah.
Instead of,
you're right.
can my lifestyle be great? Am I? It's not like you either have fun or you're chained to a desk in a grey box and your cubicle's this big and you're not allowed to leave and you never have any
You have
holidays.
fun now, or you have a future beyond working. And it's like I say, it's not either or, it can be both.
Yeah, it's both. It's both.
Interesting what you said a couple of minutes ago about opting out of the company pension schemes, and how that potentially links to what you said about conference rejections and conferences perhaps not wanting to discuss pensions, and what you said about a lot of ELTs operating within a black market where they're paid under the table. And I think it's possible those three things go hand in hand, because the big companies that contract teachers want it that way. By you opting out of those pensions, you're saving that company that 3% that they are legally obligated to put into your pension. So at the end of the day, if they're paying, tens, hundreds, or thousands of ELTs, that 3% really adds up. So you don't need to be doing them any favors by opting out, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, take the money. And I'm giving a little talk after this that I very hastily promoted. So that was my fault, because I didn't realize, oh my God, it's summer. Actually, people are going on their UK summer contracts, and it's about exactly that. Take that workplace pension just because they owe you that money.
Yeah. And don't let them get away with not having to pay it. I think we accept payment in this black market, but it's not that we're doing anything illegally, because if we're working as a freelancer and we're declaring our income or opting out of any sort of national insurance, then there are often legal ways to go about that. But the fact is, the biggest person that you're potentially affecting with that decision is your long-term self.
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose then what you're talking about is like, it's not actually black market. So, I mean, just because you're choosing to opt out of things, but you're being paid as a freelancer, and that means you don't get certain perks. Like, yeah, that's you're declaring your tax and everything. That's that's not black market. But what I mean is, let's be honest, lots of people, and I did it for years in lots of different countries, you're paid cash in hand because it's a private arrangement between you and the student, and that is money you're not declaring. And I'm like, not here to judge that at all. I said that in that webinar, like I did it. But the consequence of that is you don't exist in the system, and one day you will really want to exist in the system. And if you are not, like, if you are, in some countries it's really not possible to kind of do it officially. Sometimes it's been the case in places where I've worked. I was hired by schools who had all their teachers going, it was all under the table because it was just too difficult to get the processes in place. And but in that case, if you are going that black market route, because again, conferences are not going to say, oh, let's talk about the illegal work you're doing in whatever country, but people are, and they're forced to, because they've got to top up their salary because they're not earning enough. But when you're doing that, you really want to be somehow taking care of yourself, setting some of that money aside and putting it somewhere where it'll grow, and that is imperative, because you've not got these safety nets, because you're not contributing. That work you're doing doesn't exist in the system. And
but
you might make sorry, go on.
It will make a difference if you take a portion of it.
And you might choose, actually, you know what, maybe I will start declaring this money. Maybe it's better to do that, because I can, there's trade-offs for that. But it's all just make decisions with the full knowledge of what you're doing. That's all. Because it's very easy in TEFL, especially when you're bouncing around different countries, as I did, a year here, less than a year there. It's very easy to just kind of see that as the perk, the total freedom, the living under the radar. And, that's a choice, but it's a choice that I don't think we make knowing what it costs us. And as long as you know what it costs you and you decided to pay the price, that's fine.
Right, exactly. But I think that a lot of people are like me, and they dig their heads into the sand because it feels like a scary notion, and they don't want to open the floodgates, let's say. So what would you say that the people you work with are most fearful of in terms of asking those questions and seeking the knowledge that you mentioned?
They're afraid that when they start looking, all they're going to find is poverty for the future. And in actual fact, most people that I speak to are better off than they think they are, because it depends on the age, obviously, that people come. Because if people arrive at the point where they're starting to ask these questions and they find me, then if they do that in their 30s, they've got so much time that, retirement is going to be mid to late 60s in most countries, and maybe by the time somebody's in their 30s gets there, maybe it'd be more like 70. Like, it seems to be that's the way that we're going sort of socially. So if that's the case, in 30 years they can sort it out based on their actions from now. And people, when they come like in their 40s or 50s, like, obviously they've got less time, but often a lot of them have got an inheritance of some kind that's just been sat there, or they have saved and it's just sitting there doing nothing. And so if they've got that, then they've got some money to start putting into a place where it's going to work for them. And so a lot of those people are scared because they've told themselves, I've got no money, I've got no money, I've got no money. And they've told themselves that so many times for so many years and the truth is, actually, I've got this pot of money. It's not I've got no money, it's I've got this pot of money, but I'm afraid to touch it. So I think people are frightened that this sort of black hole is what they're going to fall into. but you can improve your situation. Like everybody can improve their situation. And for some people, improving their situation will mean putting money to work that they're already holding. For other people, it will mean, and as well, actually, everything that they do from now on, part of what they earn goes into something that's going to earn money for them. And for other people, it's a big decision to move away from working for somebody else who doesn't pay very well and start working for themselves.
Right, smart, and doing it all above board.
Yeah.
Wow. So once they've made that step and managed to ask those questions, what would you say is the first thing that they should do? Where could I start?
I think the place to start, there's two places to start. And one, oh, somebody coming in. I think one of the places to start is setting aside an emergency fund so that you have actually calculated how much money do you need in terms of your outgoings, like your fixed costs, not like going out to lunch and stuff, but you know, your rent, your bills, your internet, the things that you need, and working out how long it's going to be until, you know, like, do you need 3 months security like that set aside, or 6 months, and 9 months, you know, a year? Some of that will depend on how you feel about that kind of thing. For others, it will depend on, do you have kids or not? Do you have rent to pay, or is somebody else paying your rent? You know, like, do you live with your family? Do you have a partner? It's a lot of different things, but having an emergency fund that's set aside, that means that you can cover disasters that mean that you're not working, or even, I suppose, if you decide not to work for a couple of months. That's one thing. Building that and putting it somewhere where it earns interest. And the other thing is looking into the pension. What is the deal in the country where you are? Like, is there a tax break for contributing into a pension? Because there probably is. And, you know, how do you go about opening an account? Like, and what is on offer to you? Because your bank will have something, but is it the best thing? Maybe not. Maybe there's another company. Like, there's a lot of new banks now, like kind of online only banks, that offer these types of products at a cheaper price, because you'll always have to pay something for somebody to manage them, something like that for you, but you want to be paying as little as possible. So it's those two things. A pension and emergency fund would make most people significantly better off than they are now.
Wow, good answer. I love that. So important to get both of those things set up as soon as possible. What would you say are some of the similarities or differences that people should watch for in sort of comparing pension offers from different countries? You know, any specifics?
So, I mean, obviously, like, the two systems that I know the best are the UK and Spain, but there are similarities that mean that as long as you're asking the right questions, you will arrive at the answer for your context. So, you know, you want to know, what is the state system where you are, and are you paying into it? And if not, how do you make sure you're paying into it? And what will the state pension be? You know, does paying more into it increase the amount, or is it like, which is like the case in Spain, or is it a flat rate and it doesn't matter what you pay into it, what you get is the same as everybody else, which is the case in the UK? You know, which system is it? Because obviously it's a very different decision to be made about, you know, there's no point overpaying into the UK system, but you might want to pay more in a system that's set up like Spain. So it's things like that. And then it's like, you know, are there tax-free options where you can put money and you don't have to pay tax on it, because the income or the gains from that are covered by a kind of what's called a tax wrapper? What's the deal with that in the country where you are? And it's completely different. In Spain, there's nothing. In the UK, there's ample ways to put money in that you know, you could literally, in the UK, do all of your pensions and investments through something that's going to have either no tax to pay, or that the government's going to top up for you. This is totally different.
So what you mean by no tax is that it comes off your earnings before you pay tax. Is that right?
Yeah. So you pay tax. Yeah, exactly. So you earn your money, you pay tax on it, and then what's left is yours to put into this thing, and everything that happens to that after that will not ever mean that you have to pay tax on the gains. Yeah.
So you still invest your own money, but the difference is you're saving 20, 30, 40% of what would be going out for tax on that.
Exactly.
Which can add up, definitely.
Huge. Yeah. I mean, if I had the options that you have in the UK, I'd be making completely different choices than I am, but I'm in Spain, so I have to do, I have to do it within this system. But at least I know. And to be honest, now I know what I know. I would never have chosen to settle in Spain. Never. Yes,
wow.
It's that big a difference.
So that begs the question. Let's say you have, I don't know what it boils down to, dual residency or dual citizenship. Can you pay toward a pension scheme, a government pension scheme in 2 different countries or more?
You usually, well, this would be a great question to add to that list of like when you start looking at the specifics, because it will depend on where you're from. But usually you have to be a tax resident to qualify for any of these benefits. So, again, I'll have to take the UK as an example, but UK has certain types of accounts called ISAs. You're allowed to hold it after you've left the country, but you're not allowed to put any more money in, because that tax break, you're not entitled to it. And if I were to have gains in that UK account, Spain will tax me on it. So there's no point me having there's no point. I will have to pay on it because of where I live. So this is the kind of stuff that it'd be good to be making a decision about where you live with that knowledge, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I know, for example, Americans have to pay tax in America wherever, regardless of where they live, and they sort of have to communicate earnings abroad to pay that tax. So maybe it's worth investigating for our American colleagues whether that also means they're opening the doors to both of those pensions, which would be, I know a lot of Americans who complain about that fact, but if what it means is 2 pensions, then silver linings.
Yeah, so the American abroad situation is really complicated. Is really complicated, and you are barred from so many things where you are, and I don't know exactly what it is that you're allowed to still participate in when you're that's left to you, because it would seem logical that there would be, but I haven't yet found anybody who's got a neat solution to this. And I'm speaking to quite a few people about it at the moment, and I want to be able to put something together which is guidance for Americans who are living outside of America. Because for Americans living inside America, piece of cake. Americans living outside America, a lot more difficult.
Yeah, it's a minefield, definitely. So, but as you say, knowing what questions to ask, for example, can claim it on or put into a pension in the UK or wherever else I'm living as an American. Which then brings the question, I know that as a Canadian, I worked for 10 years or whatever, I paid into a Canadian pension. Now, obviously, I'm earning toward a UK one. And that's okay, right? Like at the end of my working career, I can take pension earnings out monthly from both of those. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's just going to be, the question is going to be then, how do you do that in the most tax efficient way? And that is where my sort of guidance ends, because that is when it's time to speak to a qualified financial advisor in the country where you're resident, who has knowledge of the country where you're, the other one, and can tell you, because the tax implications will be completely different, and you might have to pay tax on something that if you were in Canada you wouldn't have to pay tax on it, but because you're in the UK you do, and all this kind of stuff. And so that's where you seek financial advisor, tax specialist advice when you're retirement planning, is when you do need to, but you want to be paying for one-off advice that isn't somebody who's going to manage it for you, and you're going to pay a fee on an ongoing basis. Like, you don't want that. You want
to set up the process, and then it takes long, and it can
vary. So exactly.
Is there ever a reason to your knowledge, to
Mm.
sort of consolidate or like move pensions from countries or from employers. You know, as a former public teacher, we're often told not to take our pension out of the UK teaching pension. So would that be advisable in other circumstances?
This is like a really big question that's impossible to answer like really simply, because the answer is it depends.
Okay.
I've got a course like called Pension Perfect that goes through this. It's not a quick question, but because the answer is really it depends. Like some pensions can be consolidated and there's advantages to doing it. Other pension types of pensions can't be. There's penalties for taking them out or trying to, you know, move them. So it really does depend what it is. And moving pensions from different countries, sometimes it's better just leave it where it is and let it do its thing. And then take it like when it matures is better for you than moving it across countries. And especially I think it's dangerous moving pensions to different countries because you can't really be sure that that's where you're gonna end up, and you might move something. And especially I think if you go into TEFL in your 20s and you're living the life abroad, it is quite hard to envisage the situation that most people start to find themselves in their 40s or 50s when they've got parents who are aging in their own country. I know at least 2 people in the last 2 years who've moved from Spain back to the UK who never ever planned to, because they've got to look after their parents. And I just think that's so unimaginable that I
even
just
less sort of negative really, but I've had a lot of people in my circles who are so well established here in the UK as expats, you know, have worked years, if not decades, to build up a really great career here, have their first baby and realize, oh crap, I need my mom.
yes.
You know, all of a sudden their whole tune changes and off they go back to like the same street they grew up on, because they just realize how significant that grandparent support is. And that happens all the time. And it's those situations like those two that you honestly cannot anticipate until the heartstrings are pulled.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, speaking of somebody who's got kids and is now a single parent, and obviously I didn't quite plan for that part, but I'm over here now in Spain in a culture that and a society that basically runs on grandparent power, and I don't have it. And it's crap. So
it's the added burden of not only struggling to do everything yourself, but seeing everyone else get so much help.
Yeah.
I hear you. Definitely. Yeah. Okay, cool. So one thing that left me a little bit confused about the info you said on the webinar, and probably others like me, was you touched on how if we take the extra little bit of money that we're kind of skimming from a side job, the under the table money, and we declare it, we can get tax breaks. I didn't quite make the connection.
What I meant was you want to go official, because once you go official, there are tax breaks.
But why? I don't understand how that works.
Because pensions that is what they are. They are a form of forced saving that is, well, not forced because you're choosing to be in the pension, but once you've got a pension, then you contribute to it, and you can't take it out until it matures, which might be retirement age, it might be earlier, but that is then something that it affects your tax bill. So that will be what I meant, I think.
But you touched on something that would pay off now.
Because your tax bill will go down.
So how?
So again, it's a little bit, so it's different, right? It's different in the UK. Okay, so that's what I said. There's 2 different things. So 2 different types of system. You want to know what it is. So in the UK, your tax bill will not go down. In the UK, you will go official. You will be, properly declaring all your earnings and stuff, and then you open a private pension, and let's say for every £80 you put into a private pension in the UK, the government will add £20 into it, and that will be into your pension, not into your pocket. Whereas in Spain and other countries will be like this too, if you are contributing into a private pension, that is then tax deductible. So you'll tell them, I put €3,000 into a private pension, and that €3,000 will then not be taxed. It'll come, so you'll get 20% or whatever more than you thought you would in your
which is amazing, because you're getting like double impact for that bit of savings in a way, right?
Yes, exactly. And then that 20%, you know, in a way the UK system is better in a way, because that money goes, that tax bump that the government's giving you, they're basically giving you tax back, is going into the pension. And in a pension, that's a vehicle which generates growth.
Right.
That's what it's supposed to do. It's invested. Whereas in the Spanish system, what everybody does, and I have done it too, is you see your tax break, which you see this tax refund. You're like, yeah, free money. I'm going to go buy a holiday. The money disappears. You spend it. And what you really want to be doing with it is putting it into a pension account. You know, you want to be putting your, sounds stupid, but you want to be putting that money that you just got given back into your pension. Yeah, because then it grows. But, you know, if you just spend it, it's gone. And of course, you know, spending money is not bad, but in a way that money was given to you from your pension, which was for your future. And that's why you're doing it. And understanding that again means I can make a choice. I can choose to put that money back into an investment product like a pension. Doesn't have to be a pension, but could be a pension. Or I can invest it in myself, because I'm going to, you know, I said a lot of people will start looking at this stuff and go, right, okay, actually, I'm going to change tack here, and I'm going to learn this skill, and then I'm going to start earning more money. So you can invest it in yourself, and that'll pay off, you know, a lot of times more than the pension will, because now you're earning more money, and you're going to take some of that money and put it in your pension and your savings, your investments, or you can spend it. And in the third option, it's gone.
Right.
But as long as you've decided that, because I think most people don't realize, oh, that tax, that rebate that I just got is money that I could do something with to make changes to my financial security, or I could travel with it. Like, it's not that one of those things is right and one of them is wrong, but it's just, you want to know, this is the choice I'm making, actually.
Yeah, and that's the whole problem and whole reason we're here for this chat, is just to boost that awareness, so that people are making these decisions and taking these actions with a level of consciousness about them. But to be fair, some of our ELT friends and colleagues don't have a choice. They've maybe declared non-residency in their home country and don't qualify for one reason or another in the country in which they're living for a pension. So are there other options if they want to be sort of proactive about their retirement?
Other options for people that have not had a choice to be official, you mean?
Yes, basically other options for people who don't qualify to put money toward a government pension scheme.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can just invest in a general investing, you know, just the only difference between a pension and any other type of investing account is just that there are tax breaks. And with a pension, you can't take it out until you're 55 or whatever the age is on the thing. But normal investing is the same as a pension. Like, a pension isn't some magical product. It's the same thing. It's just that it's got these two sort of, I don't know, criteria. One is that there's some type of tax advantage, and two is that you can't take it until later. But yeah, just you open a broker account, or you open whatever else account, like, you know, your bank will have one. Other banks will be cheaper, probably. There's all sorts of things you can do with your money, and that is what I teach on these investing courses that I run. Is like, what can you do with your money? And the thing is, the answer to what can you do with your money is that pensions and these other things are actually the same, but it's just you'll make a decision. Okay, is there this tax advantage, yes or no, in the country where I'm living? And I gave you the example at the beginning of, in the UK you can put 60,000 a year into a private pension and get money back from the government. In Spain, that's maximum, like if you're freelance, it's 5,750 a year. I mean,
Wow.
this is a huge difference. Now, of course, somebody in TEFL is unlikely to be able to put 60,000 a year, but it's just that's the range of difference. And so, and if you're not freelance in Spain, the allowance is 1,500 euros a year. It's nothing. It's pointless. So you will decide to do stuff, and okay, you'll have to pay tax on it, but that's your option. So you're just like, well, it's still better than nothing. And I think people get so afraid of the idea of paying tax on. They're like, well, I don't want to get any interest on this bank account because I'll have to pay tax on it. It's just like, no, you didn't work for that money. Okay, yeah. It's annoying paying tax. But you didn't work for this money. The other money that you earned, you sweated over that, you traveled for it, you prepped for it, you are annoyed for it, and maybe you enjoyed it, great, but you still worked. This other kind of money that you might have to pay tax on came to you for doing nothing. And I sat down with my 9-year-old yesterday because he was asking me some questions. And I was like, well, let's work it out. And we sat, and I gave him my computer, and he had the compound interest calculator website that I tend to use. And we went through the numbers, and I showed him, look, if you had this much money in this type of account, we worked out how much would it be by the time he was 18, how much would it be by the time he was 30. And he's like, wow, because for him, these numbers were huge. And for us, like, we were only talking about what would happen if you put 1,000 in. But it's like, the point is that all of that money comes to you for free, for nothing, for no work. And if he has to pay tax on it when he's 30, that's okay. He didn't lift a finger to earn it. And it's this idea that we need to get used to, like, you can earn money without doing anything.
As well, it's not that they're going into your bank account and taking that tax. It's coming off of the earnings that you have. So it's
your profit.
Right there, the money is there to pay that tax. You're not having to come up with it.
No, exactly, right. Exactly. It's there. I mean, it's slightly more complicated than that. Like, we don't need to go into it, but it is still, the money is there. The tax will have to be paid, and you will still be left with a significant chunk of profit that you didn't lift a finger. It just did it by itself. And you'd think that we're like, everybody dreams, don't they, about like going past a cash machine that's firing out notes, because it's like, and that there's, and that you would just be able to go and collect that money, and you'd be like, oh, well, should I do it? Should I not do it? Is it stealing? Is it not stealing? And we all have that little kind of moral, we are like, I'm sure everybody's thought about what they would do and whether it was moral or ethical. And you're like, but this exists. It exists. Yeah. It's real, and it's completely, there's no theft involved, like not even theoretical theft. It's just a system that works, and it's called investing. And and I'm not talking about like stupid high risk investing. I'm talking about things like pensions.
Right, exactly. Wow. Okay. So it's been a lot. If people want to ask you more questions or benefit from one of your courses, how do they reach you, Nicola?
So I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. That's just Nicola Prentice, and you'll find me. But the website is www.chilledinvestor.com. There's information there, but there's also like a contact form. So those two ways are the best ways. But everything that I teach is simple. It's low risk. It is not cryptocurrency. It's not get rich overnight by whacking all your money in this thing and basically hoping for the best. There's no commission scheme. Like, it's nothing like that. It is just regular things that have always been open to all of us, but nobody told us was there. That's all.
And how to ask the questions? you know,
Yeah.
how to ask the right questions.
Exactly. It's all it is. Like, you know, the questions, you will be able to find and understand the answers. And I can help you do that faster. I sorted this stuff out for myself from a position of zero knowledge, because my background is philosophy and then English teaching, zero. And I'm not great at maths. I'm really not. That's not a part of it. Not at all, in fact. At my kids, like on the way to school, they're like, "Mummy, ask me maths," and I have to make up sums, and I have to like work out the answer faster than them so that I can tell them if they're right or not. And I'm crap at it, but I'm doing fine at growing money through investing because it's so easy. So yeah, don't let that put you off.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time today, and thank you for everyone who's joined us for this little Q&A workshop today, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Oh,
Okay, brilliant.
I'm going to stop the recording. Wait.
Okay. That went well, right?